Welcome, everybody, to a DAT Poker Podcast. DAT is Daniel, Adam, and Terrence. The R is silent for Ross. This is DAT Poker Podcast, episode 105, August 4th, 2021. I'm your host, Dave Schwartz, alongside our producer extraordinaire, Roscoe P. Coltrane.
We are very unprofessional.
Oh, nice for a try and drop. Terrence Chan, you're outside. You're set up. You've got something going on there. What's?
I mean, I live in beautiful British Columbia in the Okanagan Valley, and like to enjoy it sometime on my acreage. I'm actually moving out of the woods a little bit fairly time soon, and also my house doesn't have air conditioning. It's too goddamn hot in my office. But
and Daniel Negreanu in Las Vegas. This is also a new look. Daniel, you're set up. Where are we set up here at the bar?
Yo soy en Cobas Lucas ahora. What are you talking about? I'm in Cabo.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry. You're in Cabo San Lucas
yes,
for the GG Poker WSOP, the online version of the WSOP for GG Poker. You've flown down because you cannot play in the confines of the United States, which you just finished doing. You played a whole bunch of tournaments on WSOP.com for the bracelets. I saw you made a final table. Why don't you give us a quick rundown of how the WSOP.com WSOP went for you, sir?
Well, it started out with me playing the WSOP.com events while also playing for the PokerGo Cup.
Right.
So the first 10 days of the month, you had PokerGo Cup. So it was sort of like a secondary thing. You know, there were times where I'm like busting from PokerGo, playing on an iPad, driving through the garage, on the break and trying to get, hang in there. So it was less intense focus, in those. And then I started to, focusing on them. I did one stream, literally just one stream where I was like, okay, let's do a tester for Cabo because I'll be streaming almost every day, every other day. Let's do a tester. It's a freeze out. So, should be a couple hours. I ended up running all the way to third place in like a 12-hour stream for the first one in a long time. Had a real shot at winning a bracelet for real. I mean, I was three-handed. I was actually chip leader at 4-5 for a bit and then didn't go my way. Two good players. And so now we are here in Cabo. First thing I did was the way that this works with the World Series of Poker on GG is every single week there is a new flight event, a new phase event, if you will. So you got multiple, opportunities to make day two, right? So I got here on I think it was like a Sunday night or whatever. And I was like, 45 minutes left in the Millie Maker. Let me jump into that because if you qualify, then it opens up some free days for me. So I jumped in and I was able to get through on 22.5 bigs. So I have that for Sunday. And then finally played the first event here, which was the Limit Hold'em. Oh, yeah. Look at all of a sudden Terrence is paying attention.
What?
The Limit Hold'em 2,500. And, man, I really did think I was going to win it. I got really deep, and I was like, I would have ace-king, and I would flop an ace or a king, which in Limit Hold'em is like you just win. You can't possibly lose, right? So, yeah, things were going really well till the end there. And I wanted to
pick up two queens. I actually saw that stream. You pick up two queens, and the guy flops, I think, a 9.
Yeah,
and
this one was. I was going to explain that one because this is a key hand for me late in the tournament. Obviously, when your average stack is like 10 big bets, every pot you lose is significant. So I'm in late position with the two queens. I raised. What's interesting about this is I was talking to Terrence about this a little bit before we started. Was the chat response because they don't know limit. Several guys watching the broadcast kept saying to me why are you betting so small? And then other people, one guy watched for 3 hours and goes, holy shit, I didn't realize it was limit until just now. Okay. Like one guy on the river, I made nut flush. He made second nut flush. I bet he raised, I re-raised. I left him 10K behind, one bet. And they're like, why didn't you put him in? It's limit. Okay. So anyway, the hand. And this is interesting because of how people don't understand limit. I raised with the queens. There's no any. The big blind defends with 9-7. Comes 9-5-4 rainbow. He checks, I bet. He calls. The turn's a 7 of diamonds, back to diamonds. He check raises me. I call. The river's the jack of diamonds. He checks. I check back the queens because it's close to the bubble. They're all significant or whatever. And he had 9s and 7s. So, of course, the chat goes, that's why limit's stupid. 9-7 offsuit. That was no limit. You could have kept them out of the hand. I'm like, how?
I was going to say that's some hell of a discipline not betting your overpair on the end. I was like, that's a really good check back.
That queen of diamonds, too.
And that's when you're playing limit hold'em. These are the kind of things that win and lose tournaments or get extra value or your session over the end of the year. Is these sort of real close river decisions actually in no limit? That's a check back. I mean, 100%.
Oh, but it's so funny you bring this up because earlier, this is the chat knows everything because they see the cards. Earlier, I had 2 queens. I raised under the gun. The big blind called. It came Jack 9-5, right? He check calls. The turn's a 9 of clubs, so now there's 2 clubs. He leads on the 9. I have queens. I just flat. The river's the king of clubs, and he checks. And it's deep in a tournament, and the check raise is expensive. So I'm like, all right, I'm targeting a jack, but I think this is too close. He could have a king. So I check back, and everyone's like, oh, you missed value with that one, right? I'm like, well, I checked the other queens, so anyway, they don't know. But the point I was trying to make was these people, like watching this 9-7 hand, they're like, blaming limit hold'em for it, right? Whereas in no limit, there's an ante. So you have even more incentive to defend with 9-7 offsuit. So no 9-7 offsuit is folding there. Now on the flop, in no limit, he's probably doing the same thing. Check call, right? Then the turn card comes, a 7, he checks. I'm going to bet he's probably going to put me in or, put one in, and I lose all my chips. So the fact that it was limit allowed me to still be in the tournament in a hand that I would have lost anyway. Either way.
How do we like his check, by the way, on the river?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's a very disciplined check. I mean, I think it's
the guy. I'm talking about the guy with the 9s and 7s.
I think that's not good. I think he's supposed to bet that. But again, what you have to factor in, and I think if you factor in ICM, the min cash is like $4,000, right? We were like 8 to 10 out of the money at this point. And if your average stack is like 8, 9 big bets, one big bet is really significant. Like it actually means a lot more to save it than it does to win it, right? It's not like playing limit hold'em cash where all you care about is max EV. In tournaments, there are going to be spots where you have to factor in ICM. So I think I would have still bet it if I was him and then reevaluate.
I mean, in cash, I'm betting Daniel's hand on the river like 100% of the time. Yeah. Like only the fact that it's a tournament makes Daniel's check on the river kind of close. So the 9s and 7s has to bet for value in a cash game 100% of the time. And I agree with Daniel. I think you should bet it in a tournament as well. But you kind of understand what he was thinking there. So Daniel shouldn't have many flushes there, really, to be honest.
Oh, okay. You know what? Let's just go over this whole one because there's a lot here.
Okay.
I'll give you because basically those are the 2 key hands. Then this one came. We're like 2 out of the money, and I'm doing okay. I raise with 2 9s, 2 black 9s. I get 3 bet by the player in position who's the chip leader. I'm like, oh shit. Okay, well, you're not folding, right? Comes 10-5-3 rainbow. I check call the flop. Turn is a 7 of spades. So now there's like 2 spades on the board. I have the 9 of spades. I check. He checks back. Okay. River, I'm good. I'm 100% have the best hand all day. River is the 3 of spades, which makes backdoor spades. Yeah. Right. I have the 9 of spades. Total brick. There's like no way he has ace, king, ace, queen of spades because he's almost always going to barrel the turn with that hand in this spot. So I lead. He raises me.
Pocket 3s.
I was like, what is this, pocket 3s? But then I realized that I paid it off. But it was probably – so the weird thing was I had 2.5 bets left when I led. So by leading and getting raised, now I'm left with half a bet or like one, half a bet. So I bet and called the raise, and he had ace, king of spades. So he checked back the ace, king of spades.
Wow.
Which was surprising. Because if he played it normally, like if he bets a turn, I call, bets the river, I call. So I would have lost the same amount.
It's the same. And people do lots of fancy stuff like that.
He let me on the bubble, but I just can't ever check 9s there. And then I can't fucking fold.
No, I think that's right. I mean, I think that this is the thing is that because there's no ante too, you get to see all the hands up until your big blind. Even though you said you're left with half a bet or whatever, you're still going to get your full orbit. So 2 off the money. I mean, it's looking bad for sure. Like there's a good chance you're going to bubble this because of this hand. But because it's not no limit where there's an ante, you get to actually see all your hands until the big blind, which makes a really big difference. So I think you have to call there because otherwise you're just going to let people abuse you all day.
How often are people bluff raising rivers though? That's what I mean.
That's the problem is like, well, what the hell? Like the problem, like what if he just, I mean, I don't know this guy. Actually, I found out who he was, Japanese kid later, but like, I don't know enough about him. I don't know in this spot if he has any bluffs. Like in theory, he should have like king, queen with a spade or some shit like that once in a blue moon and just do that. Like in theory, I don't know if he would have. So that's the problem, Adam, is like, what the hell are the bluffs? But the problem is what is the hand? Pocket 3s? I don't even think he would have 3-bet me with pocket 3s at this stage. I think he folds pocket 3s. So nothing makes sense unless he just decided to like do something goofy, check back an overpair on the turn, or check back ace king of spades after,
I mean, if I'm that guy and I see Daniel over there with 3.5 bets, I mean, I would never check ace king suited, ace queen suited. It makes no sense. You have to put maximum pressure because I want Daniel to fold all his like small pocket pairs and stuff like that. Like it makes no sense to check back there and give Daniel a chance at the showdown.
In limit hold'em, your opponent folding the turn is usually pretty damn good, no matter what the hell the scenario, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
In limit poker, right? Omaha 8, same thing. Like, you get opponents to fold equity. It's awesome.
So here's a good one. When you bet and they fold, you win the entire pot.
You don't have to split.
Well, you laid them 6-1 and they decided, nah, that's not a good enough price.
Yeah.
Like,
so I want to get back, and Denny, you touched on the PokerGo Cup, and I want to talk about that next. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk, and we haven't done a podcast in a few weeks, and lots of stuff has happened, and a really sad thing happened, and that was that Layne Flack passed away. And Layne was bigger than life. If you ever had any kind of interaction with him, even if you just played a couple of hands with him, he was the center of the poker table that he was at. He was charismatic. He was all of the things that you think about when you think about old school poker players, and you think about what's missing, maybe from poker now. What's missing is people like Layne Flack. And yeah, some people didn't like Layne or whatever, but Layne was entertaining. He was charismatic. He was a great poker player. He was, he had his demons like, all of us do. So, but, it just sort of hit home a little bit. I think for a lot of us who kind of, maybe grew up in a similar age group and played poker, maybe not on the level that Layne did, but just the fact that he's no longer with us is really sad. And, I know Scotty Wynn gets called the Prince of Poker, but I'd make a pretty good case that I think Layne, could have been easily the Prince of Poker, because he was just that guy. And I knew him a little bit, and I know, Daniel, you knew him quite well, and Terrence, I'm sure you had some interaction with him. And I had a friend in common with Layne back in the day, and Layne didn't know me from a hole in the wall, and because we had this friend in common. One night, Layne, I ended up going out with Layne. Him and I just went out, and he had a limo, and we ended up having an incredible night, because everywhere we went, everybody knew Layne, and we had the funnest night. And he didn't need to take me; he didn't even know me, but he decided that this guy will, I'll bring him along and show him a great time, and he did. And just, a big heart, and just a tragic thing to happen to the poker world. And I know it hit me pretty hard, just on a, gosh, how old are we type thing. And yeah, it was tough. And Daniel, I'm sure because you were, a lot closer to him, and it probably was pretty hard for you too.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, to be honest with you, if you would have told me when Layne was like 30 and we were hanging out that Layne, died last night, we would have expected that, because he lived fast. He was going to live fast, die young. But, he was 52 when he passed, and I saw him a month ago at the US Poker Open, and he seemed to be in good spirits. He seemed to be like very stable, especially in comparison to the wild days we had, when we were younger. So a little bit, so it was really surprising. I saw some funny tweets or whatever, and I think Layne would have, just knowing the kind of guy that he was, I think he would appreciate like kind of telling the funny stories. And I think like Huck Seed said something like when he heard from Ellie, that he died, and Layne said, "No way that guy OD'd. He must have been murdered. There's no way this guy would OD," because he was
Nothing's gonna get him.
Right, he could handle it. And I got some good stories from the old days, because like Layne could get away with things that not many human beings could, and he was always living in the present, and he didn't really think about the future very much, which is both a blessing and a curse, right? Because you're always in the moment, which is good, but then sometimes you don't think about the future. But he was the guy that I leaned on this one time when like he always seemed to be able to like, whatever happens, we'll figure it out. I'm like, we're broke, we just went busted. We're drunk. It's 8 a.m. We're driving back to the Commerce. We can't pay rent tomorrow. Like how are you just like laughing this off? Like it's no big deal, But he always would find a way. I remember one time I was in my 20s or whatever, and I did go broke or whatever, and I didn't have any outs at this point. I like didn't have anyone to borrow from or whatever. And I remember Layne came and picked me up, and I was like sitting on a curb. And he always tells it like that. Like I'm just sitting on a curb, like desolate, like, picked me up. And at the time he was getting staked by Ted Forrest, right? So he's like, I'll hook you up. I'll get you a deal with Ted, right? Get you a deal with Teddy. I'm going to tell the whole story because, whatever. I didn't tell it on any other things. So Ted starts taking me. And I remember the first experience I had was like, I'm going to LA, I'm going to the Commerce to play all these $300, $500 tournaments. And he gives me $2,500 for like a month. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, hopefully I can get more when I get there or whatever. Make a long story short, I take that $2,500, I win a tournament for $30K. I'm playing 8160. I come back from the month trip with 80,000 from that 2,500. So we're good, right? So now this is basically all profit. Now I'm sitting in a game, because then I started playing at the Bellagio, the 200, 400, 300, 600 or whatever. And I'm stuck about 15, 20 in the game. But my bankroll is diminishing quickly because Layne is like, give me 10, give me 5, give me 5. And when Layne is stuck and we're playing stud, the ante's $100. But when Layne was stuck, he just anteed 200 because fuck you, right? He just anteed 200 because fuck you. So anyway, he loses like 50,000 in the game. I end up losing like 30. And now I have no money. And I'm like, Ted, can I get some more money for a bankroll? He's like, yeah, I can probably get you like 2, 3, 5,000. I'm like, what? What the hell? You want me to do it all over again? So anyway, that didn't last too long. But I remember one trip we took, because this is what Layne got away with everything. We went to Vienna. It was this heads-up tournament. Me, Ted, and Layne, we flew over there. And, it's a long flight, and you got jet lag, right? So Ted, who's the daddy, he's teaching his kids. He's like, all right, he's staking us. He's like, all right, guys, 3 rules tonight, all right? Let's get to bed early. Let's not drink anything. Let's play low, 4 rules. Let's play small, and let's make sure we don't borrow any money tonight, okay? So I go in, I play a small little game for an hour or two, go to bed, and now it's jet lag, whatever. So I wake up at like 7, and I go over to the casino to see what's going on. What do I see? What do I see at 7 in the morning? Layne is in the biggest game in the room, okay? Completely hammered, smashed, and it was literally all 5 guys that gave money, right? And he was like, just the way he lived, but like he was such an endearing character, as you mentioned, and like, Teddy loved him, in spite of like, stupid decisions like that. But he was the kind of guy where like, like you said, he had his demons, but he didn't. I guess he like. It's like I look at the romantic side of that crazy shit. It's like, because today's people would be like, well, that was inappropriate. And, he misspent the bankroll. I'm like, that's kind of how things were back then, and he sort of just lived by the seat of his pants for most of his life. I mean, he's the only person to ever get my mom to play poker. When he won a bunch of bracelets, my mom cooked for him every day. And then we would have Thanksgiving over at their house with his daughter Haley and stuff. And he got my mom to hold cards. She didn't know what she's doing, but she enjoyed it because that's what Layne did for people. He made them have fun with the game. So it was a sad thing to see because it really felt like Layne was making a comeback. I knew he had some pain from golf and stuff in his neck and his back, age and, wear and tear. And so, just it was really surprising. Like I said, if he was 30 and, he was out and something happened, I would have been like, well, hey. But when it happened to him now, he was like a man now. He was a grown up, so it was sad to see.
Yeah, it's interesting you both mentioned, I mean, those are fantastic stories. You both mentioned the sort of difference between now, poker now and poker in Layne's days. Layne was made for the era in which he was played, right? Like had the charisma to light up a room and to do all these things, right? And to use it to like run it up from 0 to, $500,000 and all the way back down again and do all the kinds of stuff that gamblers did in the 90s and the 2000s. And that's the stuff that wouldn't happen now. Like Layne today would never get a backer, right? Because somebody would see him drinking and playing too big, and all the people with actual money in the poker world would never back him. But it's the perfect. It was so perfect that he came along when he did, or that he had his success when he did, sort of right around the poker boom of the early 2000s, because we did get just those few glimpses of his celebrity. I think a lot of his success occurred before poker got super big, but he just kind of was able to get in there. So he wasn't like, the A-tier celebrities like the way Daniel is and the way Phil Hellmuth is and Phil Ivey and guys like that, but people still knew. And when you put a light on this guy, when he's at the table with you, it's amazing how the mood of that table just changed. Like I never got to hang out with him the way that you guys did, but I did play poker, and you can see why he's so successful at poker in sort of this people studying it seriously, because people want to lose money to him. That's probably why, right? Like because you can just see, obviously, and you hear all these stories, he was really great in reading people, just natural talent at no limit. And back then talent was sort of kind of all that mattered because there was only so much study resources. But I thought that was a thing I wanted to mention because you brought up that there aren't these personalities in the game today, and that we're lesser for that now. But it, in a way, Daniel kind of said this. It's like Layne almost wouldn't have had it any other way because it was the best time to be Layne Flack was probably the late 90s, the early 2000s. And yeah, it's really sad that we won't see him anymore. But we did get some good years from him for sure.
One funny one I got to share from Layne. Yeah. He was really quick-witted. Like he had a quick wit and a charm. Like he always had a quick comeback, And like he's playing at the World Series of Poker. It's late at night. He's playing in a tournament, and it's he's having a couple drinks or whatever. And some kid, young kid, they all have something to say. They talk about is like how many bracelets you got? Layne says 6, right? And the kid's like, yeah, but you won them like back when they were easy, right? And he goes, yeah. And Layne says, yeah, that's why everybody has 6. That's why everybody from back then has 6 of them. He's just like deadpan, you know what I mean? It's like make the guy, but he does it in a fun-loving way. He's telling the kid to fuck off, but he's doing so in a charming way, which was certainly a skill.
And he did this, because the conversation around Layne at the poker table is always unfortunately revolved around drinking, but this was true. I mean, Daniel, you can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like this was true when he was drinking and when he wasn't drinking. He was still a fun guy when he wasn't drinking.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And the thing I wanted to say, and you guys are touching on it perfectly, is he had a way of making fun of somebody he doesn't know at the poker table in a fun, loving way, but making fun of them, taking the piss, as they say, right? Like you couldn't get away with it, right? Like only Layne could get away with that because he did it in such a way where the person didn't feel insulted, even though he was kind of getting insulted.
He had a nickname for Alan Cunningham that was like, I guess today would be considered very offensive, and it wasn't meant that way. It's just like he thought he looked like one. He called Alan Cunningham, he called him Twinkie. Because he kind of just, he's a tall, thin, looked like a Twinkie. And he called him Twinkie, but it was like, it's okay because it's Layne. You know what I mean? Like someone else calls you a Twinkie, you might be like, what the fuck did you just say? But with him, he got away with it.
Well, and the other thing I wanted to quickly touch on is, he was terrifying to have if he had position on you in a no limit game, right? Like the two people that I think of that I've most been terrified at a no limit table are Phil Ivey and Layne Flack when they had position on me.
He did something. I'm going to share one strategic thing he did in no limit back in the early 2000s and late 90s that only recently, very recently, have the high rollers figured out is absolutely next level GTO stuff. He was doing this back in 2000, and that's this. There were spots where, like say there's a spot where you're going to go all in, right? Instead, and everyone just puts all their chips in, right? Well, today you see people hold a couple chips back, right? Yeah. Because they realize. So Layne often would on the turn just bet like 80% of his stack. He bet like 8K of his 10. The guy would move in and just fold to keep the 2,000, right? So it's essentially the same as going all in, except he's left himself 2,000, which might be 10 to 20 big blinds, which as we know is plenty to come back with. So he essentially figured out a way to put maximum pressure on people, but still stay in the live and tournament. So he essentially was going all in on people, in there fully all in, except he had the escape route because nobody would ever bluff after a guy bets. If a guy bets 8,000, he has 2 left and he raises you. He can never be bluffing. Yeah. So Layne knew that early on, and he used to save those chips when he was bluffing, right? And it was something that I've seen a lot of the really good players today, have studied it, and he had that right. So he had a real good knack for poker. When we discussed poker, it was a train wreck. He didn't know why he was doing. He didn't know why he couldn't explain to you why what he's doing was working so well. He was aggressive. He did other things, but when I talk poker with him, I'd be like, "What the? That makes no sense, Layne, but it works for you, so you do you, bro. I can't. I got to go a different way."
Oh, I remember back in the day we were at the World Series, and you might remember this, Daniel. It was a $1,000 buy-in with rebuys, unlimited rebuys. And I remember you and Layne were at the table. I was at the table next to you guys, and we were, table full of nits, and you guys were rebuying two rebuys ahead. The idea was you and Layne were trying to get as many chips on the table as you could. You knew the table wasn't going to break, and I'm going to just rebuy. I'm moving in blind. You're telling everybody, both you and Layne, hey, I'm moving in blind, and here we go. You guys win as much as you want, and I'm going to just try and win them back, and we'll have a stack to go deep with. And you guys had so much fun at the table. We're all just watching you guys and how much fun you guys were having at that table next door and that kind of thing.
Yeah, we were complaining about how bad we were running because I mean, we were like saying like, God, 10-3 has to beat ace king sometime, doesn't it? Like what the hell? How do I keep getting jack 4 and they have 10s and they hold every time?
Yeah.
So like that was like our version of like, venting bad beats. Because it's true. You get jack 4 against 10s, you're supposed to win.
Once in a while.
Yeah, we were not, but we ended up getting the chips. That was a different format where you could like play rebuy tournaments where, instead of having to go to the cage and coming back to re-enter, if you knew your table was going to break, you pump everybody up, right? And then you get them all back, and now you're like, the whole table is going to make the final table.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was fun. Good times. Rest in peace, Layne. And there was lots of great tributes out there in the poke world, and it was great to see everybody sort of embrace the character that Layne was and celebrate him. Okay, so you touched on it earlier, Daniel, the PokerGo Cup, and I think our last podcast might have been just right at the beginning, a couple of events in. Nothing really was happening for you. You were down there mixing it up, and what is it, 10 events, 12 events? I can't remember exactly. But you went a couple of days before you played, I believe, the second to last tournament. I think it was Doug Polk who came on and he trolled you a little bit like Doug can. And he was pointing out that it's been a while since you'd won a poker tournament, and started pointing to all the second places you had. And there was some Twitter stuff going back and forth that was pretty entertaining because you were pointing out, you won 7 in a row or something before that and that kind of stuff. It was great. And then there's this Michael Jordan moment, I thought, where we've all seen Last Dance. And and they put Craig Elo on me, and I took that personally, right? So it was totally the same thing. I saw that like Doug's trolling you, and like, fuck you, then I'm going to come back and bake this thing, and you did. You came back and you won the tournament, and that gave you I think you were in second or third at the time when you won that tournament, or did you get into the league?
Yeah, it all went down. So early on in the whole PokerGo Cup, I was just tweeting bad beats because like I was just tweeting. I was literally just tweeting every all-in that I played, every single one. Yeah. And it was like 7 in a row that I lost. And I tweeted everyone. It was like,
followers did you lose during this?
I'm tweeting every single hand that happened where I was all in, okay? They happened to be all losers. I was pretty tilted. I bubbled the very first one, like Stone Cold bubbled it. And then like, I had 2 min caches. So things were not going though well. Although, like 3 out of whatever, 6 or 7 events, I was constantly like getting there. And then the 50K comes around. There's 2 events left, the 50K and the 100K. I'm not really on the radar for winning the PokerGo Cup, right?
Yeah, Ali's in Sirovich was leading, I think, or wasn't he?
Oh, he was crushing. Yeah, he was crushing. And then you had David Coleman up there, and you had David Peters. You had a lot of guys, up there. But, winning the 50K is worth, it was specifically one that actually you get the most points for in a weird way. Yeah. So anyway, make a long story short, it all came together. And, I got heads up with David Coleman. And I remember, like, people don't realize this, but when you've lost as many heads ups as I had, I don't know, fucking 15 or something like that, you feel spooky things happening in your brain, So there's this hand where we get it all in, right? And I have him out chipped. Like, this is for the tournament. I have ace jack, and he's got pocket 3s. Okay, let's do it. And the flop is jack 6-5. So it's over. The drought is finished. I finally won a tournament after all these years. Don't do anything crazy. 3 on the turn. I fall out of my chair. Jack on the river to add insult to injury, because then in my brain I'm like, well, I would have even beaten aces or kings and stupid things that don't make any sense. So I lose that pot, and it was really difficult in that moment to not see, like, how your life flashes before you. Every beat, like Barry Shulman hits the ace, like all these bracelets that were taken from me in heads up spots. And so, but I had to bear down, and I thought I played the heads up really, really well. I was able to win it. And then, of course, from there, you jump right into the 100K. And because I'd won the 50K and everybody else that was kind of in the running was out, I busted Ali. Or no, he was out of that one already. So anyway, going in the final day, there was 5 of us left and it paid 4 spots, right? I needed, if I came 3rd or better, I win the PokerGo Cup outright, right? No matter what Sam Soverall does, I win the PokerGo Cup outright. If I finish 5th, I don't win. If I finish 4th, right, just make min cash, then I need Sam Soverall to not win, okay? 2nd or 3rd. Crazy, right? So Dan Smith, who everyone had a bet that he was going to be the first one out, even though he wasn't short stack, because he's got balls. He's got balls of steel when it comes. He doesn't care. 230 bubble, whatever. He's all in. He busts. I didn't play a single hand, 5-handed. My wife at home was like, thank God, I don't want you to get anything. And then 4-handed, Sam Soverall raises with 2 8s. I go all in with the aces. And he calls with the 8s. The flop's nothing. The turn is the 8. So again, I lose my shit. And I bust in 4th place. And I bust to Sam Soverall, who now has a massive chip lead, and it's like Sean Winter's short, and he's got a good lead on Kerry Katz. So, Sean busts, and now Kerry El Jefe, we call him, he's down like 2-3 to 1 in chips, and he just starts bluffing the shit out of Sam. And I decided to have a beer and have some wine and root on Kerry Katz, and he ended up just coming back and having an epic victory. So it's weird because I wanted to win the PokerGo Cup, but I didn't want to win it like that. Yeah. I kind of wanted to be like, all right, final 3. I did it. But it's not like I did anything wrong. I played fucking pocket aces against eights, and such is life. I made a really good laydown the very hand before too against Kerry, where it was a hand where he raised under the gun, 4-handed. I called with ace 8, came nothing, check, ace on the river. I checked. He went all in. I folded, and he had ace king. So saved myself. I felt like I was rewarded with the aces. Didn't happen, but anyway. Long story short, nice profit, $50K for the PokerGo Cup, meant a lot to me, and I got off the Schneid. You know what I mean? But like even still, it's so crazy because I just finally won a tournament last night. But in that moment when my aces got cracked, I was right back to this fucking bad run of all ins, like in my head. You know what I mean? Even though I just won, $700K in a tournament. It's crazy how the brain does that to you.
Well, tournament specifically, right? Like unless you win, sometimes you're gonna, get it in with queens versus kings or something like that. But more often than not, tournaments end in a horrible way. And to do those.
Sometimes like that's I think the hardest skill for poker players is deciding whether they're playing well or they're running bad, right? Yeah. And I've been doing this for a long time. And obviously I felt really good about how I'm playing because I'm looking at how I'm going out. So people might go like, why do you focus on this? Why do you care? Why do you pay attention to whether you go out? Because to me, it tells me either when I think about how I'm busting, it tells me one of two things. Either A, I'm playing poorly. I bluffed off my chips. I called off my chips. I didn't bluff in the spot that I should have. I, strategically played poorly. Or it's just stuff that is out of my control, right? So I'm not tracking it for the sake of like going, oh my God, watch how bad I'm going to run. It's more of like, oh no, I'm playing good. Because in every one of those tournaments, I was building chips. And I was doing so maneuvering and all this kind of stuff. And the ways I was going out, this is the thing that people don't get. People, poker fans or whatever, they see somebody win. He must be good. They see the guy lose. He must be bad. They don't look inside for the details. And poker's not a game like chess where the best player just wins, So that's the hard thing to do is to be able to figure it out. And I was telling my wife every night, I go, babe, I've never played better. I'm absolutely dominating. I'm like not even kidding. I'm dominating, crushing the deep stack early stages when the cards are on their back. Right now, we're going through a run, an epic run of, awful proportions, but it'll turn. And when it does, we're going to freaking destroy this thing. And, at least I was able to win the 50K and had a good run in the 100.
It's the psychology of poker, like that you guys both mentioned about, the day after you won this big tournament. It's almost as if few players recall big pots that they have won, strange as it seems, but everybody can remember with remarkable accuracy the outstanding tough beats of his career.
Did you read that? Or do you have that memorized?
No. I pulled it up just to make sure I didn't fuck it up. But I think I could do it on the fly. You could test me next week.
Nice. All right, so you're down in Cabo. We mentioned that, Daniel. You are playing in the GG
Cabo. He said Cabo. How Canadian was that?
That is the most Canadian thing Adam Schwartz has ever said.
What is it, Cabo?
Over there, down there, in Cabo, St. Lucas, You big loser. They got any beer there? You got maple syrup, Oh, what I'm drinking, by the way? I should show you. I got what I brought with me to Cabo because I need it now. Ever since you sent me that package, had to bring tons of Tim Hortons coffee.
Oh,
yeah. I got a whole bunch of boxes of Tim Hortons that I threw.
Are they sponsoring us? Did I miss a sponsorship?
We need Tim sponsorship. That would be good. Nice. So you're in Cabo and you're playing some GG events. We're 3 or 4 events in, 31 events this month. The amazing one was, and I think we touched on it a little bit earlier, but the $50 buy-in return was an amazing hit. There was tons of flights. I get it. There's $1 million guarantee on a $50 buy-in tournament, the first event of the GG Poker WSOP series. And it drew 24,587 uniques, not just rebuys, uniques, 6,223 rebuys. Which put a prize pool for a $50 tournament at 1.4 million. And this goes to show you, we talked a lot about, poker boom and how poker is healthy. But when you can spread when you can spread interest in the World Series of Poker, in the game of poker, over a large sample size of people who will buy in for $50, and that's a comfortable, like there's only 6,000 rebuys of 24,000 uniques, right? So that tells you that it isn't just a bunch of guys shooting, tons of bullets. This is the average poker fan who can afford to drive. He goes to work for $100 a day for all week, and then, well, yeah, there's a 50. I could win a bracelet for $50, and I live in Ontario or somewhere in Europe, and I got the chance to win a bracelet, play against all the big. This is where poker has grown. This is the grassroots, and it's such a huge success. And I'm glad to see that GG kind of goes this route and tries to drive traffic that way, and that creates poker players and interest. And it was great to see. It really was.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you bring that up too, because like obviously we have the debate all the time about the prestige of the bracelet, right?
Yeah.
When you think about like, well, how tough is it to win a bracelet? Well, you just said it was a $50 buy-in, which is small, the smallest in history. But having said that, you had to get through 25,000 people to win that. So anyone who says whoever won that didn't deserve it is not really looking at the bigger picture. That bracelet absolutely should count, and whoever won it, should be very proud. We also had, to lead off, we had the 11111 COVID relief charity event. I didn't make those two events because I was traveling. My first one I played was a limit hold'em, so one event in, one cash down. And I'll be playing my stream schedule for those that want to watch. It's going to be about 11 a.m. or what is it, your time? Well, Pacific, it'll be about 10 a.m. And my stream schedule will be static for sure on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Definitely. Actually, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Sundays I'm taking off. And then there could be streams on Wednesday and Friday, depending on the heats. Because as I mentioned, you have those like heat events that go, and I obviously am going to always try to qualify for that, stream that almost daily. But it's kind of nice to have the schedule the way that it is, because there's not a bracelet event every day. Okay, they're not overloaded with bracelets. There's Monday's an off day, Wednesday's an off day, Friday's an off day, which is nice because it allows me to enjoy Cabo, not go as crazy, and it's a different kind of schedule than it has been. I think as a company we wanted that too. We wanted to make them special. There's all side events. If you want to play on GG, you're going to have everything imaginable. But for bracelets specifically, those will be exclusive. They're not going to be popping out 5-6 a day. There's like 4 a week or something along 3 to 4 a week, something like that.
We should mention too, only because you forgot to, but talking about your schedule, that you're doing the staking thing again. You are selling yourself at par in the GG Poker client. First come, first serve. You got to follow Daniel on Twitter, I imagine, is the easiest way to do it. And then, have your GG client up and mash the button as quickly as you can. But interesting spot. I was watching Limit Hold'em after I busted out, and you guys were hand for hand. You had like a blind and like a bet and a half or something like that, and you're hand for hand, and you got dealt like, I think it was like ace-8 suited in the cutoff, and you're like, oh shit, do I really have to fold like ace-8 suited in the cutoff? Thankfully, it was 2-bet and 3-bet before you, so you actually, folding is clearly the correct play. But it's a funny spot, right? Because if you just want to win yourself a World Series bracelet, you never fold ace-8 suited in the cutoff. It doesn't matter the situation. But you've got all these people in the client. It was your first bullet, so that was the bullet that you sold, because I think you can only sell the first bullet on GG. And you've got all these investors. I don't remember. I think you sold 16% of yourself or something like that. But you got these people who would really like you to kind of squeak into the money as much as they're cheering for you to win bracelets. But that's obviously, unfortunately, got to affect some of your decision making sometimes.
Yeah, a little bit for sure. Like I don't want to just completely punt because I would feel bad. But right before the ace-8 suited, I had 2 deuces in the small blind. Okay. And I'm thinking, oh shit, what am I going to do here? Because obviously if it folds around to me, I'm just going to raise and get in against the big blind. And oh, there was a raise in front of me, but I'm literally on two big blinds. But there was a raise in front of me. The thing is with deuces in the small, like, yes, if it was just my own money, I'm like, I don't give a shit about the cashes. I'm just going to get the deuces in. But it's not a good spot. Like you have deuces. Like the best case scenario is the guy has 2 overs. So you're like a coin flip, or you're just dead because he's got like a big pair. And you're in the small blind, which means you have all these extra hands to look at. So then 2 hands later, I pick up the ace-8 of hearts. I'm like, oh, fuck. But a guy opens again from middle position. And again, ace-8 suited is not the nuts. And luckily, somebody else 3-bets, which made me feel less bad about it. But to answer your question, if you will, about, I tell people, when you buy a piece of me on the first pull, like I'm going to gamble in these spots, right? I'm not going to play ICM correctly. I will but I'm not going to stretch it that, like, I'll give them a little, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to go completely bonkers, but I will take into account somewhat. But overall, if it's close, I'm going to play for the win. And I think the fact that I'm charging no markup makes me feel fine about that. It's like, if anybody put in their rent money to buy 1% of me in this thing, then like, you made a mistake in the first place, because that's crazy. But yeah, I think most people who buy a piece, it's kind of fun because then they can, you know, rail it and sweat it. And listen, I'm telling you, for even me, even playing without any consideration for ICM, even me playing with the idea that there are rebuys available if I get short, this is still plus EV, this bullet. It is still plus EV. I'm very good at poker, and I try very hard. I show up right on time for hand number one and get all the early chips and try to build from there. So, like in the WSOP, for example, I rarely rebought. In the PokerGo, there was like 2 events where I rebought. Like, I take that first beer bullet very seriously. If I do get short, like 10 bigs and somebody opens and I get ace 10, I'm just going to ship it in. Where if it was my last 10 bigs, maybe I wouldn't. You know, that's about it. But it's not like these gambles that are like, oh my God, you just gave it all away. No, it's ace 10 is a gamble. It's like, okay, I still probably have 35, 40% equity anyway. You know what I mean? Like, so basically, yeah, that's what you understand.
I understand. I just thought it was really funny that I was really, I mean, the kind of sadistic, gross, bad person part of me was kind of hoping it was just going to like fold around to you, or maybe the hijack opened or something like that.
I just got to get it in.
Yeah.
Terrence, how did you find the standard to play in the limit hold'em? I'm curious.
I mean, it's getting better. I mean, I had high hopes. I mean, there's people making mistakes, but I kind of had high hopes because GG Poker doesn't spread limit hold'em in cash games. At least the last time I checked it in. So I was like, ooh, maybe it's just gonna be a bunch of people who just registered for the no limit tournament and the registered didn't realize it was limit tournament. There's always gonna be some of those guys, but I think
I ran into a lot of them.
Really? You got better table draws.
I ran into like a bunch of guys that, because on GG Poker, they'll have like a crown and you can see what they've won. You click on, you have like a smart HUD. You can look at their stats. You can look at what they've won. And a lot of these big winners, right? We're making like just clear limit hold'em mistakes.
Yeah. I see some guys like flat calling instead of 3-betting and stuff like that.
From the small blind. Like, I constantly saw guys flatting from the small blind rather than 3-betting, which, as you know, in limit hold'em, and I was talking about it when I was on stream. You see that, you just know, like, okay, this guy, doesn't know limit hold'em.
Yeah. So we were talking about cash games at GG Poker, and I don't know if you guys noticed this, but in June, I believe, GG Poker stopped PokerStar's 15-year run of being the site with the most consecutive cash game players at one time. For 14 years, PokerStars hadn't lost that crown, and GG had a day in June where they're now neck and neck. So if you look at PokerScout or any of the tracking sites, GG and PokerStars are neck and neck with concurrent cash game players, which PokerStars dominated for forever. And that's a long way because GG obviously has the tournament series. They draw a lot of players. That's sort of the marketing that they've gone after and the tournament player. But now the cash games are heating up too at GG. I thought that was pretty interesting. Daniel, did you notice that? And is the company pretty excited about that?
Absolutely. Not only did I notice it, was very excited to see it. Was like a little surprised in terms of how fast, since I signed on with GG, how fast they grew and were able to make up the gap. And from here on out, I think that it's going to widen even further. Like, I really do think, I experienced it, playing WSOP all month, and I'm dead serious. Like, Scout, I played WSOP all month, and the software is basic, to say the least, right? Playing on GG was fucking fun. Like, I was enjoying it. I was emojiing. I'm snap camming. I'm hearing the sounds. I'm squeezing the river. I'm squeezing my whole cards. It's like so engaging. I'm playing in big blinds. It's like such adaptive software. And as far as like the cash games go, best cash games you'll find, and a big part of that is like a real deep understanding of ecology and how cash games need to run, right? And what you can't let people get away with, because a lot of people are unclear on like, well, what are the rules for GG? The rules are you can't do shit. You can't use a HUD. You can't use pre-flop charts. You can't use any aid whatsoever. Now, some people may say, well, how do you police that, right? Jaywalking is illegal, right? Like, people walk across the street. It's illegal for good reason, right? Do people mostly get caught for jaywalking? Not always. Once in a blue moon, they'll get a ticket for jaywalking. But it doesn't mean that just because you're not going to catch them all, that you shouldn't have the rules in place, right? So one of the best things I think GG did too, to make it easier and level the playing field, is you have a HUD. for everybody in equal information. Because I remember when online poker started to go down, and I'd hear from the casual players saying, "Oh, I don't want to play against these guys who all know my stats and all my numbers." Right? Feels bad when they would watch a guy stream and they see all these numbers and color codes and all this. So we eliminate all that, get rid of it. Police it the best you can. And I think that goes a long way in terms of having the guts to say, listen, we care most about making these games fair and fun, right? Professionals absolutely have every opportunity to win a bunch of money here because you got a bunch of, really good games. Just make sure you are not trying to squeeze out every added inch of benefit by trying to skirt the rules. Because if you do skirt the rules, they are going to enforce them as they actually don't put those rules out there just for whatever. The rules are there for a reason. And again, if you skirt with that line, if you're not sure, I'll tell you what, if you're not sure what you're doing is okay, first and foremost, email help@GG Poker. And if you don't do that, then if you're not sure what you're doing is okay, you're wrong. I mean, then don't do it. You know what I mean? If you're not like, should I have this up? Da, 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 da. If you're not sure, don't do it. You'll be okay. Level playing field.
Yeah, great stuff. Terrence, what's your take on it? You've obviously played on lots of different softwares. Do you like it for cash?
I like that. So I hadn't played on GG for a while, probably since the last World Series, and the HUD was a new thing. It was very cool because it was a lot of the stuff that if I played on PokerStars or something like that, that's what I want. It's mostly how often it is entering the pot, how often are they 3-betting. I think it's actually especially even more useful for limit hold'em. A lot of these HUD things, they're a little less useful for no limit because there's sort of some more nuance to no limit with the bet sizing, and they're more useful for limit. Yeah, I like them. I mean, I've always liked the GG poker experience. There's certain things. I still hate squeezing the river. I still hate it. And then Daniel's gonna fight me to the end on it, and I'm gonna fight right. I just show me the fucking card. I don't want if I'm getting sucked out on, if this motherfucker's gonna 2-out me, I want to know it now so that I can rate it now. I don't want to be like, oh, it's a 3 across. No.
You know what? You're right now. Just your reaction is totally proving my point. Look how emotional you are about it, right? That's what you want to do. You want to create that sort of emotional connection to the hand. Your emotion right now is pissed off, but at least you feel something. Correct. At least you feel something. No, for sure. My wife, she has anxiety about it. Like when I squeeze the card and she's watching, she's like, just turn the fucking card, man. I can't take it, So I get it, but it's like, again, it's all part of the bigger picture and trying to create as many moments. Like the emoji stuff, the emoji game these guys have now, they're coming at me with the Elky emojis. They're coming at me with my own face. We had a guy doing snap cams. It's very interactive.
How has
very 2021 in terms of that's how a lot of people today communicate, emoji only.
Has anybody put their dick on Snapcam yet? It's got to have happened.
I would have expected that. That was my first thing when I heard of Snapcam being
has to have happened. Come on.
Yeah. Well, I haven't heard of it happening, but the good news is this. If you don't like the Snapcam feature, which obviously I can understand why some people don't want to hear a guy ranting, you can turn it off. You can turn off specific people. You have that option. If you don't like the squeeze feature on your own cards, you can turn that off or on. It's totally up to you. The one that you're not getting away with there, Terrence, is twofold. Number one, you're not getting away with the river squeeze. And number two, big pots, you're not getting away with seeing dun, 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 dun. Gee!
I love it. It's awesome. All right, so we're talking World Series of Poker. Let's talk about the live version, the in-person version in Las Vegas coming up after the GG Poker Series. The Delta variant of COVID is coming back. It's causing issues. It's causing some anxiety amongst poker players. Mask mandates and different things are being suggested. What are we thinking here for the World Series of Poker in Las Vegas coming up? We were all optimistic. We thought, oh my God, this is going to be an explosion. Everybody's been waiting to play poker for a couple of years. We all want to get back at it. I'm wondering now if that optimism was a bit early. I don't know. Terrence, what's your thoughts on it?
People were like, oh, this is going to be the biggest main event ever. And I was getting ready to sell the under. I think if you managed to book the under back in 2 months ago, I mean, price of Bitcoin's gone down a lot in the last 3 months as well. But yeah, COVID is definitely presenting a problem. US-Canada border still isn't open right now. It's scheduled to open next week for Americans coming into Canada, but not Canadians driving into the United States. That's a problem. What are countries going to do with vaccine passports. Is that going to be a thing that's happening in the United States? Is that going to be a thing that's happening? What are mask mandates? We just don't know. There's way too much. There's a huge segment of the population that will not play if there's a mask mandate. There's a huge section of the population, I mean, a substantial portion of the population that's not going to play if there's some sort of proof of vaccination required. So you are going to lose a lot of these players. The idea that it's going to be the biggest World Series ever, I think at this point is pretty laughable. Still 2 months to go. So, I mean, it could still be good, but I don't see this. I don't see this being anything close to the biggest World Series ever.
Well, here's the thing though. Okay. So the bet and the betting line that people had in June, for example, that the World Series was going to be big and all that, I like this a lot. This was before there was any sort of news about the Delta variant being as contagious as it is, and also being hosted in people that are vaccinated as well as those that are unvaccinated, right? So I think there's a lot of obstacles we face. I just got a text from a guy today, I won't name him, but this people are on both sides of this, right? Well, he says, you should probably start thinking about requiring vax proof to reg for tourneys at WSOP. I'm sure it's possible that something will change between now and then, but I can't imagine playing myself if not. Just doesn't seem like it's worth the risk. And then you have Matt Glantz tweeting out that they should have some sort of, you basically proof of vaccine. And my thought is this, and I was joking, but it's true. It's just true, okay? If you require proof of vaccination, one of two things will happen. People will come up with fakes because the system isn't very good. And two, if those people don't play, the tournaments just got way fucking tougher, period, all right? It's true. Fuck, I don't care. Oh, you're stupid. You're fake. Dude, think about the group of people that are, microchips in my head and I fucking have a magnet sticking on my neck. Look at this. Look at that. They're fucking mouth breathers for the most part. Like, totally clueless. Like, you kind of really want to play against these fucking people, right? It makes the tournaments way juicier.
Except the fact that they're probably going to give you COVID, but yeah.
But the thing is here's the thing, right? So we don't know. Like, from what I'm seeing, here's what I've been very interested in this lately. But like, so okay, 97% of hospitalizations for COVID, 97% are those that are unvaccinated. 99.5% of the deaths in the U.S. are those that are unvaccinated. Okay, so the people that are getting sick and dying are not vaccinated. However, the Delta is still infecting those that are vaccinated. They're just having mild symptoms, so they're okay, but it is spreading. And what we thought originally was that, with the vaccine, you wouldn't be able to spread it to other people so readily, but from what I'm seeing is that might not be so true. So if the virus is there, which it will be, right? Because I don't think COVID's ever going away. The question is, what does the next variant look like? And is that the one that's going to wipe us all off the face of the earth? I agree. I don't think it's going to be feasible or workable if everybody has to wear masks for that long, because I think people are exhausted from mask use, and I don't blame them. Like, it feels kind of like, I think this is the thought I have. People that are vaccinated, or, there's like me, us versus them now, they feel like resentful of the people that are unvaxxed if they have to go back to wearing masks as a result, right? It's like, if everybody would just get vaccinated, this thing we could go, get rid of it and then go back to living normally. And those that did the right thing, if you will, by getting vaxxed, myself included, have been living free for a while and should be able to continue to, but we can't, because a certain section of the population has a degree from the Facebook University, and they like they have a doctorate in Facebook medicine, and so yeah, so I'm concerned. I wasn't concerned a month ago at all, but I'm starting to see that, it's just so damn contagious, and the fact that it can be hosted in those that are vaccinated, that's concerning, right?
So I want to let's talk about some of this practical stuff, because a lot of the conversation is focused around, like, will there be masks, will there be vaccine passports, and so on. There's been a discussion of, say you get deep in a poker tournament and you get COVID, you test positive, and so there's been a lot of discussion about this. Dan Smith recently brought this up. I have this tweet, and we're supposed to tweet stuff later, but I'm going to read now because it's relevant. But he's quote tweeting Danielle Anderson, who says something similar along the lines as you. Says, I know more people in Vegas right now with COVID than I have at any single point during the pandemic, and most of them were vaccinated and they all feel like garbage. Dan Smith quote tweets this and says, I think tournament directors should have a protocol where if you test positive for COVID mid-event, you get some number, like say 80% of your ICM. There are going to be instances of people feeling sick and finishing the tourney not to forfeit 5 to 6 figures in EV. And I think this is a really interesting kind of problem that tournament directors are going to have to navigate, because
it's not going to happen. You got these tournaments with 10,000, 20,000 people. You're going to test all these people mid-tournament. It's just not even a thing.
I mean, let's just say final tables then.
Oh, so that would be different, right? Because like imagine day 2 where you're playing out on the money. What are you going to have, like 1,500 people get in a line and all get tested? Like, and I also think that I actually don't like the idea, because you could have done everything right, wore a mask, even been vaccinated, and still get COVID. You shouldn't lose money because of that. I don't think. Like, I don't think that's really all that fair. You know, like just to be like, oh, well, one extra hurdle. It would make me, if I was playing with money that I was concerned about, less likely to just invest in.
But it's also awkward. Let's say I test positive for COVID. I make the final table. Like, yeah, make side final table, test positive. Maybe I don't even feel bad. They seat me next to the 85-year-old dude who's breathing through a tube in a wheelchair, and I got to sit next to this guy all day.
What the fuck's he doing there?
I mean, I'm just saying, like, I got to sit next to the 85-year-old guy with a breathing tube in a wheelchair. I know I have COVID in me right now. Like, that's kind of
everyone who decides to play the World Series of Poker this year is doing so whether they're conscious of it or not with risk, and it's assumed risk. And I don't think that like policing it in any way is really going to be feasible or workable. You know, and then you ask the question too, what about favoritism? What about this and that? What about like somebody spiking your drink with fucking COVID? You know, or something like that, to like, oh, this guy's a computer, let's fuck him up. You know, like in the main event. I don't know.
I'm gonna move inside real quick because I'm getting dark. But you guys keep going.
All right. The other thing I quickly want to touch on is I saw some discussion that 2022, the World Series is going to be no longer at the Rio. The Rio has been sold by the Harrah's Caesars and conglomerate. And the 2022 World Series is going to be at Bally's, which, you know, we've had this rumor for quite some time. It's going to go to the convention center. It's going to go to Bally's. It's going to go to Caesars, but it does look like it's at Bally's next year. I don't know. I've not spent a lot of time in Bally's other than a couple of drunk nights walking through it to get to some other casino, but if there's enough room there, but apparently there is, and it's going to be there. So that's a challenge, right? I mean, you think about the World Series of Poker and the amount of people and parking, and now all of a sudden it's on a strip property. I don't know how it's going to work out, especially if we have sort of a bounce back year that we all hope for, and it's going to be, you know, super busy and crazy. I don't know that I'm specifically looking forward to playing at or attending a World Series of Poker at Bally's. I don't know, Daniel, what's your thoughts there?
Well, I'm first and foremost, I want to say I'm a little exhausted having to hike with Terrence through the woods just now, like puffing and puffing. And no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so I mean that's like been a rumor. Seems like there's a lot of merit to this rumor. I don't know that it's been announced officially or anything like that. I did see, I think it was Chad Holloway, who sort of went through the hallways and took a look and see what it would look like. I think there's pros and cons, right? Like I like the Rio setup. It's just off the strip. You can get in the parking lot off the back way. But I think the good news with the Bally's location is you don't have to park there. You can park pretty much anywhere, and you can take a tram. You can park at Bellagio, walk over. So it's like, I mean, at the Rio, for example, you park at the Rio. That's it. There's no like walking. It's just, you know, but here it's so accessible now. I think that it'll work. I don't know.
At the same time, the Rio has a lot of parking, and that's my concern with that. Sorry if the sound is there. I'm in the garage. But that's my concern with the Bally's, is that it doesn't have parking. And Vegas is such a car-reliant city. Like, I mean, that's the thing. I assume you drive, and a lot of people drive too. And especially, you know, now that it's on the strip, if you're coming from the west side, that means you have to cross the strip. It's going to take a lot of time. Like that is the concerning thing to me, is that I don't know if they have the parking infrastructure. Like, because the Rio, for as much as, you know, there's nothing around it, it does have, there are enough parking spaces there, and there always have been. Even in things like the Colossus, you've got parking spaces.
No, you're right. But what I was trying to add is that, like, you can, with this one, if let's say if it's a Bally's, you can add up all the parking spaces in Bally's, Venetian, the Wynn, Bellagio, Aria. Like, you know, people will find a way. You know, basically you just have a little bit more walking. But I'm frustrated with you with the idea of having to drive from where I live, crossing over the strip, and, you know, making it on time and stuff like that. So could be a little bit of a hassle from that perspective. But I think if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Yeah. I don't think ultimately, like, if parking is an issue, that'll stop it from happening. I don't think they'll be like, no, guys, we're going to move, but, you know, can't get the parking. People will find a way.
Yep. One other quick thing.
It'll make dinner breaks a lot better. That's probably one of the things I'm looking forward to. And I know Daniel prepares a lot of his own food and all that, but like your dinner options, if you're on the strip, going to be a lot better.
Well, here's the thing. If I had a room, like at the Rio, if the rooms were closer to the convention center, I wouldn't need an RV. I wouldn't. I would just go to my room on breaks, right? But because at the Rio, it's about a 15-minute walk to the room.
To the shitty room, by the way.
Yeah, well, I don't care. I like the rooms. They're fine. But if, for example, the actual event is close to where like the rooms are, and I can get to my room and back on a break, could save me some money on an RV. Actually, wouldn't save me because I'm going to be renting a room. Duh.
I was going to say, isn't Bally's the company that owns all the channels now? It's just a sports company now. You guys watch hockey this season. Like everything that was Fox Sports became Bally Sports.
Oh, really? Didn't know.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay.
I got the NHL package, so.
But you can still see it. You still, me too. But
so is that where Vander Kane was making bets, or?
Possibly.
It could be. By the way, I have Vander Kane and he's running bad. I have him in 2 keeper pools.
He's a keeper, all right.
Yeah, he's a keeper. One other quick thing before we get to some tweets, and I noticed this a couple of weeks ago. The poker website 2plus2.com was sold. Mason Malmuth, who owned it for him and others owned it for 20 some odd years since they started it. And for a while, Mason certainly, and Daniel, you guys had run-ins, and Mason had run-ins with others. But 2plus2.com was the place for, in the late 2000s. If you think about where you went to get poker news, information, that kind of stuff, 2plus2 was where you went. And it was sort of the center of the poker online world, other than poker sites. And he finally, he's an older man now and decided to sell it and move on. I noticed in his thank you that he was nice enough to thank myself and Mike. Terrence, you got a bit of a snub there, I thought.
Yeah, just good old Mike and Adam doing the show for all these years.
Wait, you thank me?
No, he didn't thank you. There's no.
You should. You brought a lot of traffic. You brought a lot of traffic to that site.
There was a thread dedicated to just me.
There still is. There's still is.
Oh, there you go. I gotta go check it out. I'm sure they're saying very positive things about me.
Yeah, sure, they love you. But
that's where I could always count on. It was like I called it the cesspool because I could always count on, like, whenever I needed my ego to come down a little bit, just get into the trenches on NVG and read some of the shit people are saying, because they were like fucking. This has been going on for like 20 years. They were like cutthroat. I don't know if they're softer now or harder, but I went through a period way back when. They've always been fucking. Basically, no matter what I'd say, they fucking hated me, that crew. That's such as life.
For sure. Mason was nice enough to, back in the day, take a chance on Mike and I to host a podcast, and we did it there for a long time. And then Terrence for 5 years, I think, 4 or 5 years, and can't thank Terrence enough for that, for stepping in for Mike when he stepped aside. But
assholes.
God, I love that clip. That's the best, MJ.
That's what he paid for. That's what Mason brought him over for.
So good.
I had a very love-hate relationship with 2plus2, so I probably fall in the middle of your two guys as the extremes, because I mean, it was a very good place to talk strategy for a time. I remember back when I first got online and first got into poker, there was the 2 forums. There was rec.gambling.poker and there's 2plus2. And I know Daniel remembers rec.gambling.poker too. And it was very different because RGP, as they called it, was sort of the Wild West. It was unmoderated and you could say whatever you want. You could be whoever you want.
Doug Grant? Remember Doug Grant?
Like people were just absolutely insane, like Doug Grant. But you also had
scandal guy. Can't remember his name now. The cheating scandal guy, huh?
Oh, who was that?
Rush Georgiev.
Yeah, Rush Georgiev on RGP. Always with the big.
Like he was literally everyone of cheating. It doesn't matter. Stu Unger's cheating. You're probably cheating, Daniel. Everybody's cheating.
I remember I played with him at the Crystal Park Casino years, like after finding out who he was, and he seemed like kind of a con artist bullshitter.
Yeah, but it was interesting. It was a Wild West, but there was a lot of brilliance and a lot of crazy shit. Because once in a while, Daniel, you'd come in and you'd just be like, here's this hand I played. And you'd break it down. It'd be like a 200, 400 hand that you played at the Bellagio or something like other real smart people would come in. Chris Ferguson was on there. You'd talk about poker theory, like Andy Block, like all of these guys who were, in the late 90s, really kind of on the bleeding edge of poker. And 2+2 came along, were very successful. And I think 2+2 kind of catered to a different crowd. It came in on the web. So, the web at that time was starting to take over from things like Usenet popularity. It was accessible, and people, it was sort of a little bit more, it was moderated by Mason and David. So obviously they didn't let the crazy shit get out of hand, but also they were a little heavy handed in their moderation as well. And they blocked people from talking that, in my opinion, should not have been blocked from talking. And so you never got that really sort of brilliant stuff, but for better or worse, it ended up winning, and it ended up becoming unquestionably the number one online forum for poker. I think at some point at its peak, it was like a top 30 website in the entire world. Like,
yeah,
not,
I think it
not
was,
poker.
it was
websites.
like one of the top, I think at one point it was like one of the top 7 forums.
Yeah, like it was just exactly. I remember reading the number. I was like, that's insane. I mean, and you just see the number of topics that were on 2+2, and they diverge and it became this whole community. And I know a lot of people love that community. I was sort of always outside the community, but in the end, when I think back upon it, I guess I am appreciative of what Mason and David and Matt and those guys brought to that community, because it did grow the game. And I know that Daniel's definitely not going to have any nice words to say about those guys, and I totally understand why. But at the same time, you do, I think, have to look at the contribution that site made.
Indeed, yeah. All right, let's move on to some tweets.
You're going surfing on the internet.
All right.
So one quick story before we get into tweets.
Okay.
And Terrence, you've got some off the top. So my daughter, she's 18, and
What? When did that happen?
I know. Don't even get me started. Anyway, so she's been going on dates and stuff, right? So she's on the Tinder, as they say, and
daughter's on Tinder. The little girl who cried when she watched me do a jiu-jitsu tournament because she thought I was getting hurt.
By the way, this is what you have to look forward to, Terrence. So don't start. I'm going to be giving it to you back when it's your turn. But, so she goes on a date with a guy, and they go for dinner, and the guy's like, they're trying to find out their interests, and the guy's like, yeah, I play a lot of poker. I'm a pretty good poker player. And he goes, yeah, I could probably crush you at poker, he says to her. And she goes, really? Is that true? And is that right? And she goes, and the guy goes, why? Are you a poker player? Do you play poker? She goes, yeah, I play some poker. Oh, and are you any good? And she goes, well, I'll tell you what, my dad played for a living for 20 years. My uncle has 3 World Series of poker bracelets. That kind of stuff. So I guess, and then she goes, the guy goes to her, does your dad know Daniel Negreanu? and Chloe goes, know him. He's in my fucking living room 4 times a month.
Fantastic.
So wow. I guess the guy pulled his phone out and he starts Googling YouTube, like looking for this podcast. Anyways,
you guys
that's hilarious.
What's that?
You guys watch Ted Lasso?
Yes, I haven't seen season 2. I can't wait to get started.
I'm waiting too. I'm gonna wait for the thing. Everybody else seen it?
Yeah.
No, but
yeah, people were telling me about the dart scene. Like,
yes.
And I'm like, this was the greatest thing. And it was a life lesson for me, because it actually made sense. And without spoiling it, I'll just say that, like, Ted Lasso, this character in the show, is the nicest character or human being that I've ever seen. So obnoxiously nice. You're like, this can't be a real fucking person, but he really is that nice. It's insane. And he has this way of looking at, because I've always been judgmental, first and foremost. I think that's part of what made me good at poker, is because you look at somebody and you judge them based on limited information, right? Which is good at the poker table, but it's not necessarily a good way to live and to treat people and to, stereotype people, if you will. So he talked about, instead of like, I don't want to ruin it too much, but instead of being judgmental, like, be curious, right? Be curious.
Yeah.
The more you know about somebody, the more you ask, like, be curious. When you think something of somebody, like, find out more. Because you may be surprised what happens when you're not curious, and you'll see it if you watch the show, because no spoilers on here. But I had 4 people recommend the show to me in the same day. It was weird, because it wasn't like, it was just recently.
Yeah.
And I binge watched all of the first season.
It's a great show. It's fantastic, and you should watch it if you haven't. All right.
The way that I thought that story was going to end was that Chloe was going to be like, all right, let's say you've got 9-7 suited middle position, playing 150 big blinds effective. You open and the cutoff 3 bets to 3x.
Yeah.
What if he's just like, imagine he's like he says to her like this. He says, "Yeah, I had these queens the other day," and she's like, "Well, I mean, with that part of your range, I mean, that bet size doesn't support that. You can't really be over betting there. Like, it's just, you don't have enough bluff combos there." And hit the guy just go, "Huh?" You're like so intimidated. He'd probably be like, "Yeah, no, this isn't gonna work."
I'm out of here. That would have been funny.
It's always scary to don't brag about things unless you can really back them up.
Right.
All right. So we've been talking about the World Series and COVID. So Matt Glantz, as he often likes to stir the pot, so he's put up some. This was a while ago. This is we haven't done a show in a little bit, but WSOP 2021 opening lines requires participants to wear masks during play, 4-1. Require participants to show proof of vaccination, 9-1. 20% of currently scheduled events canceled or postponed, 6-1. Do you guys like any of those lines?
I love the 20% of currently scheduled events canceled or postponed at 6-1. I think it's probably close to 2 or 3-1. Now
the mask price is even not too bad. I think I might take 4-1 on the mask price. I would probably lay the 9-1 on the vaccination proof.
I don't think that's going to fly, but having events canceled or postponed for sure is got to be.
Seems like now the best one, 6-1 you get on potential cancellations.
Yeah. He posted that a couple weeks ago, so whatever. Max Silver, it's a funny tweet, but want to bet on the WSOP happening, but not having any coherent COVID policy, including no provisions for testing positive mid-event, any takers. And we talked about this a little with the Dan Smith tweet. And I think practically speaking, Daniel's probably right. They're probably just not going to do any testing.
Well, think about it. You do these tournaments, right? Yeah. So just think about how long they take. So the 3 p.m. tournament starts. People get done at like 2 a.m. They bag up, they come back the next day, roll out of bed, and they play day 2. Like, when is this testing happening? Unless, like you said, you're just doing it for final tables, which seems sort of like kind of arbitrary, because it's like, all right, well, you were fine with COVID until the money. It's kind of like that old rule they used to have where like you can wear headphones, but not when you're in the money. So basically, if they thought headphones were a cheating device, it's like, no. You can cheat up until the money, but now you got to stop because now, obviously.
Yeah.
Spraggy, this was again a couple weeks old, but he phoned up the Caesars Buffet to try to book, and he was told there's no availability for the next couple of months. People are out here making all you can eat reservations for September. Incredible behavior. This was you talked about this a lot, Daniel. Just Las Vegas, people are just going nuts. Is it still absolutely nuts in Las Vegas? Like, are people still getting it out, or is it changed now a little bit with the Delta variant?
Well, I'm here now, right? I've been.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I've been hearing because I remember, I think they said it was August, July. I don't remember what the date was that we were going to have to go back to some indoor restrictions and stuff. But when I was out at PokerGo Studio, which was middle of July, there was everybody was out. There was clubbing, there was partying, there was literally just in my mind, just being in that environment, it was completely over, right? In my mind, I'm like, okay, this is no longer a pandemic for me. This is a pandemic for the unvaxxed or the people that are having spikes. But for me, I'm good. And then, fast forward maybe 2 weeks since you start hearing about a lot of poker players, acquiring it, even though they were vaxxed and stuff like that. So I can't imagine that Vegas will ever revert back to where it was unless we see something like the Delta actually having, or the next variant having a high death rate, right? Because if it just means some people are going to get sick, and very few deaths or whatever, I don't think that financially, economically, Vegas and all the powers that be will be willing to do that. And I don't imagine that it'll happen at the federal level. I mean, you can't really regulate Florida and Texas, and Vegas is kind of in the middle of those two in a weird way. So from what I can tell, Vegas moves forward and, for better or worse.
Yeah. Normally I only post funny or, sarcastic tweets, but a long thread. But I think Daniel will like this one because it's from a guy named Jason Sue at Jason B Sue, and it's about celebrating. And Daniel, I know Daniel's talked about this in the past. I'll try to read it as quickly as possible and summarize where possible. But he says poker is big on not celebrating. I get it. When you win a hand, someone lost, and you want to show some respect. But now many have an internal dynamic where they're incapable of enjoying the wins, which causes problems over time. There's a lot of pain that comes with playing poker. If you never know how to truly enjoy the good stuff, it means a large amount of your time is spent in pain and misery. Celebration doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't even have to be something you do outwardly, but it does need to be done. Otherwise, your attention will skew towards what's wrong, which creates a negative feedback loop, which hurts your confidence and performance. Proper components of a celebration that complete a positive feedback loop: 1, acknowledgement; 2, connecting to the feeling of appreciation inside your nervous system. Appreciation is a feeling. Acknowledgement is a thought. One's in the nervous system, one's in the mind. When you think about things you appreciate but can't connect to the feeling, you're really just acknowledging. And as a result, you miss out on the good stuff. With practice, you can get the full impact of celebration by learning to acknowledge and appreciate internally. It can even be done in just one breath. Learn to truly enjoy the wins at both the mind and body level, and everything shifts in your favor. You'll build the structure of emotional resilience, keep your love for the game growing strong, and create real staying power. And then he has just a link to check out his email newsletter. But it's interesting because in the past we've talked, you've mentioned this, Daniel, like guy will win a poker tournament and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between that and, he's getting a dental filling, right? Because he just shows absolutely no emotion.
We used to play this game where we would watch it on mute and you'd see the two people stand up and you had to guess which one won.
Yeah, exactly. Can't look at the cards. Yeah. And it is because, and a lot of that is because poker players are trained to, don't worry about the results, just play your best. You talked about this even in the beginning of the show. Like, you know what? I got aces. The other guy had 8s. He flopped an 8. Fucking sucks. I hate it. But all I can do is get the money in with the aces. Right. And so, we train ourselves to not get too high and not get too low. But this was an interesting point of view that I thought that if you kind of never take the emotional highs, all you're left with is the lows, I think is what this guy's trying to say. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on this.
So
I have lots.
Yeah, I want to quickly just say before Daniel, you jump in, I don't know why we needed to go like this and jump up and down to get enjoyment out of a high in poker. And it translates to other things too, like sports. And, there's lots of guys that don't showboat or do anything like that. So I don't really.
I think showboating and celebrating are not the same thing.
No, I know. Sorry,
like Tiger Woods makes a putt, goes like this. That's a celebration. It's not like screw you guys. There's no negative connotation to it.
No, but not doing that also isn't automatically going to turn you into a miserable person.
No.
Like there's lots of guys, and that's what he's saying, right? He's saying if you don't do that, then negative things happen, and I don't really buy that. I think. So I get it, right? A lot of the high roller players today, they want to be even keeled. They want to just like keep it straight, win or lose, and that's like this utopian idea. I don't think that's realistic or viable, and I think that's sort of what this post talks about: is that you are human and you are going to feel the punches and the gut punches when you lose these flips or whatever, right? And if all you ever allow your emotions to attach to are those negative ones, and you never let out even a simple like, "Fuck yeah!" I was really upset and annoyed when we sort of had this cultural shift where don't like act like you've been here before, too cool for school. Like they're like too cool to celebrate. And I've mentioned this on the pod before, but it was Kelly Minkin. I remember main event of the World Series. She's at the feature table. She won a sick hand, right, on the river. And she let out like a little like, yeah. And then she apologized for it. And I was like, see, that's fucked up, right? Let people be themselves, right? If you're not an emotional guy and you don't, you're not a celebrator, that's, like, I'm not suggesting that you need to be, but if you are, and that's how if you watch a sports game, like when you watch sports, you watch hockey, do you cheer, Adam? Right? You see a goal scored, you cheer, right? You're excited because that's part of like the feeling of like, fuck yeah, we got it, baby, we got it. And it's like, so at some point it sort of became like uncool to do that for your own successes. And I think I'd like to see that shift away. Again, I agree with you if you're talking about showboating, because it's very, very different. Like a guy winning a pot, and this is some of the best moments from the World Series footage. Guy wins a huge pot, runs to his rail, right? Wins the tournament. All of his friends jump up and down, and he's celebrating and all this kind of stuff. Antonio being lifted up when he won the one drop. Like poker needs those kind of moments, and it's okay. And it's actually a good thing, I think, to allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. No, I totally agree. I just want to, but I quickly will counter that. That tweet specifically talks about if you don't do it, then it's going to negatively impact you. And I
think he's right. But I think what he's saying, if I can sort of infer, is that celebrating for some people doesn't have to be that, right? You can celebrate in other ways. For example, you won the tournament, you go out to dinner, you have, drinks with your friends or whatever. Like some people won't even do that, like celebrate the small victories or things like that. Like it doesn't have to equate to in that moment go, wee. Yeah.
I think it's about not suppressing your emotions when it comes down to it, right? It's like acknowledging that, you know what, this feels good. Feels fucking good when I win a poker tournament.
Like after you win the tournament's over. You don't have to still be like this even kill. Like you can allow yourself to say something like or be something like, I'm so proud of this one. I love this. I'm so thankful. I got lucky, but man, this feels great. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about the all the World Series stuff. I struggle with this stuff too because I've also not been a celebrator, and I've always been that guy who tried to be a robot at the poker tables. And it's interesting because I was doing this long before the current wave of no limit geniuses that did this. Because I remember the 2004 World Series, and if you guys remember Mike McLean, I'm sure Daniel knows who he is, but Mike McLean was a high stakes limit hold'em player at the time. One of the guys was kind of like my heroes because I knew guys that knew Mike, and he was a limit hold'em crusher back in the day. And I knew him a little bit, and there's this late in the tournament, I think it's just before the final table, there's this like crazy 3-way all in. I think he has like kings against ace king and tens or something like that. And they're all standing around waiting for the flop to come out, and flop comes pure, like 3 small cards. And then all of a sudden I hear Mike McLean go, "Come on, baby." And I was like, oh, he let out emotion. Like I didn't expect, but the money's already all in. Like you're not supposed to do anything. And I was 24 years old, right? And poker didn't have this culture that Daniel's talking about back then, but I was still that guy. And so, now as I'm a little bit older, it's kind of funny. I'm not a fresh poker player anymore, all this kind of stuff. But you see that, and I see what Daniel's talking about. It's like, I don't want to go and call the young group of elite poker players robots, because I think that's really super unfair, and I think that's wrong. And these guys work really hard, and to denigrate them, I think, is wrong. But you do see the culture of too cool for school a little bit, and I think it's partly too cool for school, but it's also partly because we've trained ourselves to suppress these emotions. Because if you let because it's almost as if you don't, like you're thinking in your head, if you don't suppress your emotions, they're going to get the best of me. Like there's this demon that's going to come out. So I got to keep it pressed in this bottle. I can't let this genie out of the bottle, because if I let that cork out, it's going to consume me, and I'm going to go on tilt, and I'm going to lose all my money, and I'm going to drink, and I'm, do that stuff. And then that's not really the way the human psyche works, I think.
Yeah. One quick thing to add is like all the things we just said, especially on TV. If we are trying to sell the game, and we are trying to promote it, the casual fan wants to see that you give a shit. The last thing they want to do is see 2 guys get all in, one guy wins, one guy loses, and they go, and nobody seems to give a fuck. They just walk off and they're done. Like they want to ride the wave with you. They want to experience it, just like we watch hockey and we watch that team, and when we see them cheer and we see Mark Stone in Vegas go, I want to feel that with them. When you, like, Terrence, you're at a final table and I'm rooting for you. Like, I don't want you to just win and be like, no, we won. It was, cool. Come on, bro, give me more than that. For TV, especially, like, I think it is. I mean, not everyone has to be. You don't have to be different. Like Eric Seidel's Eric Seidel. He's on his own. He's a brand. He's never going to be the guy that's going, woo, fuck yeah, I busted him. But like, be authentic, be genuine, and if you feel an emotion or something like that, especially on TV, I think it's worth, I think it's extra important to not hide it from.
Honestly, I'm such a sap. Like, I don't always watch every minute of the Stanley Cup Finals, but what I do always watch is like the cup celebration and those guys taking the pictures. And I also like even want to watch the losing team. Like, it's this weird thing. Like they always show the camera of like 22 guys on the bench with their heads down, and that like gets me. Like, I'm choking up even talking about it right now. Like there's something very like raw and primal about seeing like, since they've been like 5 years old, this is like the moment that they've been thinking about. And to see like the manifestation of that, like it gets me like every fucking time.
What about I really think this whole podcast is like, if we wrap it up, it's like emotion is the running train, right?
Yeah. From Layne Flack to now.
When we squeeze that river card on GG Poker.
Fuck that.
It's the emotion. But like,
you know what? You can't stop me from squeezing the river card, but you can stop me from that, but you can't stop me from just leaving the room and coming back.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah. But it's like it's that, and it's like you said, I do the same thing when I watch the end. I want to see the losing faces. I mean, not because I'm
right.
You want to see the fans booing Bettman too. That's
yeah, you got it. That's what we've been missing the last 2 years, is the fucking fans booing Bettman.
No, they did a pretty good job.
They did it in Seattle.
Yeah, they did it in Seattle. That was great.
Which is amazing. Right? Welcome to the club, Seattle.
One of the you guys talking about watching the losing team, and one of my favorite moments in sports was at the gold medal game in 2010 when Crosby scores the winner, and there's no love lost between for what I thought of Ryan Kessler as a player. So watching him destroyed after that goal got scored was somewhat enjoyable for me. Unfortunately, I feel bad saying that, but it was. Anyway, let's move on quickly to some more tweets. We're running late, so we got a couple left here. I just want to get this one in quickly, or at least this one, because I noticed this, and this is really good sportsmanship, and I wanted to highlight it. And it's Tim Riley at Tim Riley Poker, and he says, "Does anybody know Patero 22 on ACR Poker? We're heads up in the lunch high roller, and he keeps disconnecting. I'm trying to stall, but chat isn't working. Difference between first and second is 5K. So hopefully someone knows him." And poker players get a bad rap about snap raising when people are disconnected. But here's a guy on Twitter trying to find the guy who he's playing who's disconnected. I thought that was pretty cool. Matt Glantz, we talked about earlier. I had one in there. Marley Cordero had a good tweet. She said it took 3 years of perfect credit to get pre-approved for an 8K loan. It took being able to tie my own shoelaces to get approved for a 50K package on Poker Twitter, selling at 1.3.
Yep.
Sure, right.
That's tough. Great tweet.
That was a great tweet. And Lucky Chewy, Andrew Lichtenberger. What if luck is just a different kind of skill? Which I thought was pretty good. But
Chewy's been on the mushrooms, for sure on that one, right? Like that's a mushroom tweet, right?
Good. It's really good. All right, guys, that was fun getting together again. That was great, Daniel. Run good in the GG series. We're going to try and get these out on Fridays. Thanks to everybody out there for tuning in again. Thanks to you guys for getting together, and we will talk to you soon.